Give us your sense right now of where we are on this coronavirus in China. How bad is it?
Well, I just keep looking at the death rates. And while this is a terrible outbreak, certainly horrible for the city of Wuhan, the Ebola virus a few years ago had a 50% death rate. This has 2%. So while it's terrible, I think the government of China seems to be doing the right thing, and hopefully we'll get it under control in the next couple of weeks.
Anya, that's somewhat encouraging. On the other hand, it seems to be more contagious than some other bugs have been. And also, what about this possibility of being able to actually contract it without any symptoms?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, I'm here in San Francisco, and we've got one case here, and they're spreading around the world. You also look at what's happening economically in China, and of course, there's the city of Wuhan, which is 11 million people, is completely shut down, and you can't just discount that.
Anya, something that we've seen that struck me is there was a cruise ship this week in Italy, 7,000 people aboard. Temporarily, everyone was held in place. In the end, there was a suspected case, but the person didn't have it. Nonetheless, the symptoms are probably symptoms that most people get in some form at least once a year. So from a sort of disruption standpoint, even if it's not, people aren't getting it, even if it doesn't spread too wide globally, even if it's not that fatal, it seems like the potential for disruption is massive, just at the fear that every time you cough or have a fever, you worry that you have it.
That's right. And you see the fear already. I've seen some people here on the streets of San Francisco with face masks. That's not usually something you see. As you know, of course, airlines are canceling flights. So I think the reaction to this has been appropriately strong. And hopefully that because people are taking it so seriously, that'll help us contain it. And ultimately, it'll do less damage.
I mean, obviously, the focus that a lot of people in the markets would have is what impact is this going to have on Chinese growth, but also on companies operating in China, may be very reliant on Chinese workers coming back from their New Year holiday to Foxconn or other places to keep working in tech industries. So I'm just wondering how you see that. I mean, we've done some economists at Bloomberg, we've done some estimates of how we think it could affect the Chinese economy just in the first quarter of this year, and that could have ripple effects for the regional economy. But do you think we're underestimating, if in a week or two's time we find that people are nervous, they're staying at home after their New Year holiday rather than going back to work? I mean, could there be a step shift in the economic impact of this?
There certainly could be. And just looking at the SARS virus from 2003, the Chinese economy, its growth dropped by 2% that quarter, used in the entire Chinese economy. Now, of course, it was going gangbusters then. It went from 11% growth to 9% growth. Now the Chinese economy is already a bit wobbly. And so the impact that this will have, especially on the service sector, on people going out, I think is not to be underestimated. I do think, however, you just had a lot of corporate folks on saying they have their supplies, they think we're fine. I think unless this outbreak goes on for several months, we should probably be all right with the U.S. economy.
Anya, how confident are we in the ability of the infrastructure, the health infrastructure in China to deal with this?
Not very confident. If you've ever been to a Chinese hospital, there are some state of the art and there are many that are not at all. And you see by the Chinese authorities struggling to build a brand new hospital of 1,000 beds in a week, that they're concerned about it. So primary health care in China is still not at all up to Western standards. And I just feel very sorry for all the doctors and nurses who are the first responders here.
I mean, it is one thing you notice over the years that, a lot of the emphasis in the first steps of these kind of crises is on putting everyone in quarantine or stopping transportation. But of course, the real key is are those local health institutions and the first responders, if you like, how quickly can they respond? I do worry a bit. I mean, China, when you think of its attitude towards the internet, towards kind of any form of solidarity among citizens that's not controlled by the state, is there enough sort of social trust and transparency at that local level to make sure that officials are being honest about the figures and working together to try and fix it?
Yeah, I think you put your finger on it. I have never seen a response this open and honest and upfront by the Chinese government. So I have to say, so far, if we can believe them, they're doing a pretty good job. This is the opposite of what happened with SARS. But on the flip side, it's an autocratic state run by the Chinese Communist Party. They've put people in jail for saying worrying things about the virus. They're censoring social media, so you can never be quite sure that you're getting the full story.